Welcome back to the late night review, and I'm really happy to finally get to a movie that has a very soft spot in my heart for it. It has a very special place in my heart, and by the way, I'm doing these videos casually. There's no script or anything like that. I'm just trying to relax, just be myself, like if I were talking to you in the room. But I really like this movie. It's Supergirl. Came out in 1984. It's with Helen Slater, Peter O'Toole, Mia Farrow's in here, and just Faye Dunaway is in here. It's a good movie to me. I like it. It's a movie that it's not going to be very high on a lot of people's lists, but I like this movie a lot. There's an innocence about it. I think it's really well done. Peter O'Toole, like I said, is in here. Mia Farrow, Faye Dunaway. Helen Slater plays the lead as Supergirl, and she's Superman's cousin. And this movie is just, I have a lot of nostalgia for it. It's just one of my favorite movies, and I'll tell you why. And it has a great score. Has a great score in here. Superman, the Superman films, of course, they had John Williams, that great score. You don't get better than that. This one has a good score too. Jerry Goldsmith, I think, did the score, if I remember right. I'm going on memory. I've seen this movie 100 times or more, probably more than that. And it's near and dear to me. I like the music. I like Helen Slater's innocence. I like the way she plays Supergirl. It did not do very well at all at the box office. I heard it bombed. In the interest of full disclosure, I love all of Christopher Reeve's Superman movies, even part 4, even though the special effects were not good at all. The special effects were bad in there for most scenes. But the special effects were great, especially for that back then in Superman 1, 2, and 3, really great. In fact, they not only stand up, but they surpass a lot of the CGI stuff nowadays because it was practical, looked more real. And the reason for that is a lot of these modern superhero movies, there's kind of um, there's an atmosphere or like something on the film. It's almost like a gray tint throughout the whole movie. It's almost like they're preparing the stage for the CGI, so the CGI will look better when it eventually comes in. But they didn't do that back in the day when these movies came out. These movies are really colorful. Nowadays they have colorful movies too, but not like these. The uniforms look brighter, more beautiful. And one of the reasons I like these bright colors in these superhero movies is they make the characters more strong looking. They make them look more powerful. There's almost a glow to Helen Slater's outfit in here, and of course the Christopher Reeve, all the Superman. I love all the Superman movies, even part 4 with Christopher Reeve. And just to let you know, I'm a fan of Superman. I love Superman ever since I was a kid. I got a ton of this. I was raised on Superman. I saw these movies when I was a baby. I'm talking about Superman 1 and 2. Just when I was a baby, I was taken to the drive-in to see part 2. And I was told I was taken to the theater to see part 1 when it came out as just a baby. I was there, and then I was taken to the drive-in to see the second one. And the third one, I saw it at the Roxy Theater, where I grew up in Renton. I don't live there anymore, but I grew up in Renton, Washington. It's right next to Seattle, but I saw it at the Roxy Theater. And then part 4 at the Roxy Theater, my dad, uncle, and cousin. And I had a blast seeing those movies. I saw this at the Roxy Theater as well, Supergirl, and I loved it. I have a ton of nostalgia for it. It has its flaws for sure. It's not going to be for everybody, but there's a charm about it. And there was a point in my life a few years ago where when I got off work doing the graveyard shift, I'd come home in the morning and I'd put Supergirl on when she's flying over. Uh, it's in Illinois, but it's over Chicago. She was looking for the Omega Hedron, the power source of Argo City. And by the way, Argo City in here is beautiful to me. I actually like this depiction more than the modern depiction because it reminds me of that the great artwork that they did in Superman 1 with Krypton. It looks like Krypton in Superman 1 and 2, the Superman movies with Christopher Reeve. Reminds me of that. It's got this crystal palace, crystal castle type aspect to it. It's shiny. It's beautiful. And I really like how Argo City is in this movie. I love the score. Like I said, there's an innocence about Helen Slater and this movie in general. The amount of goodness in these original Superman movies and this Supergirl movie is you just don't get that nowadays in movies. And so one of the reasons these movies, unfortunately, and it says a lot, that probably would not work as well nowadays. But I do think there are people out there like me and others who would look at that as a breath of fresh air of these types of movies with being so colorful and the characters being so good and powerful and fighting against evil. It's kind of in a black and white sense symbolically in terms of good and evil. I think a lot of people would look at that as a breath of fresh air, and we need that nowadays instead of all this gray stuff in a lot of movies we get. But I think in dramas, I think gray areas are really, really important if you have dramas, because there's a lot of gray areas. So certain movies that works, but in these movies with the heroes, but I do like that sequence. It made me cry when I was a kid and I walked out of the theater when I watched Superman 3. Love that movie, but when he became bad and evil, I cried in the theater and got mad and upset, and I stood up and I walked out. One lady there, she kind of smiled at me and thought I was just cute and adorable because I was taking it so serious. When my dad talked me into coming back, he said maybe he's going to change. We'll see what happens. And he eventually changed. And then he won the fight in the graveyard, opened up his shirt, and then the whole theater clapped and everything. And I was happy. I tell that story in my Superman 3 review. You could check it out on the channel. I tell that story. But there was such goodness. And nowadays, I enjoy the part where he turns bad because I know he's going to turn bad. I don't want him to stay bad. I want good to win in the end, and I want him to come back. And I like when Clark Kent wins the fight and he's Superman after it's over. But when I was a kid, it made me angry and I cried. I walked out of the theater. My dad convinced me to come back in. I was in the lobby and he brought me back in, and got a lot of nostalgia for it and for the whole thing. And when I came back, I saw the end and I was happy and everything. And it ended up being one of my favorite movies. Love Superman 3. Nowadays, I can appreciate it and enjoy it. Added more drama to it. And he eventually came back and he defeated himself, the bad Superman. Good Superman came back, and that was awesome. So nowadays, I appreciate it. I really do. So they need that in some of these movies, as long as good wins in the end. I like the original formulas. I think they worked really well. I grew up with Superman comic books and a lot of others too that I just absolutely love. A lot of other heroes, like Aquaman, Thor, Batman, Incredible Hulk, Spider-Man, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter. So many. I can go on and on about superheroes. I should probably add more superhero movies and more topics on my channel because I like that. I grew up that way, but Supergirl, back to this movie. I know I got sidetracked. I'm sorry. Supergirl is one of my favorite movies of all time of any category. There's an innocence about it. It's not slow to me. It's a decent pace. I really like her outfit. The special effects are good. It's right on par with the Superman films and definitely better than the special effects in Supergirl's definitely better than part 4, Superman 4. And they're good special effects. Faye Dunaway plays a witch, and she does a good job in here. I think everyone does a good job for what it is. Of course, there's comic booky type stuff. There's comic book stuff because it's inspired by comic book characters. Some goofiness, some silly stuff. That's the way the comic books were sometimes. But I think it's a reasonably good story. It might have been bigger in scale, it would have been better, but I think it's a good story. The scale is pretty good for a first installment of Supergirl. They never made any more because this didn't do well at the box office. That's too bad because I loved it. Wanted to see more. I really like this genre, especially when it has to do with Superman, Supergirl, and I enjoy this movie. The acting for a superhero movie is good. It's not bad. It's pretty good. Some of it's goofy with Faye Dunaway and her assistant and all that, or assistants or acquaintances. The magic aspect to it is okay. I don't mind it. Some people have a problem with it. I forgive it probably because I like it so much. I think that it's like I said, a fast pace. The special effects are pretty good. I like the score a lot. I think it's Jerry Goldsmith, if I remember right. I haven't seen the movie for a long time. And Argo City looks good. And I believe that this is still, it's not only one of my favorite superhero movies, but it's one of my favorite movies, period. I have a really soft spot in my heart. Like I said, when I came home from doing the graveyard shift, I'd watch this parts of this movie, especially where she was flying. And I thought, man, just like with the Superman movies, it would be so awesome to fly. I liked how she was out at night looking for, she was on a special mission to find the Omega Hedron, which was uh, uh, the power source to Argo City. They needed that so the city would come back and survive. And I really think the movie is colorful. It is a movie that I wish would have done better at the box office so we would have gotten more. I enjoy it. I enjoy it quite a bit. And I think if you like superhero movies, you'll like this movie. It might not be your favorite, but you'll like it. I admit one of the reasons I like it so much is because of nostalgia, but I love the scene where she first has the suit for the first time. She changes into Supergirl. She's in nature, comes out of the water. And one thing I love about this movie, I don't want to forget to mention, Krypton, I believe, is in outer space in another galaxy. Argo City in this movie is in inner space. It's in another dimension. One thing I love about this movie is her spacecraft comes from another dimension, goes into the water here on planet Earth, and she changes into Supergirl and comes out of the water, becomes Supergirl. She does a whole flying scene that is, to me, is wonderful. Love the music. I love how she is doing her. It's almost like a graceful type dance, and she's floating, and then she takes off, touches the water, and goes flying through the countryside. You see her fly next to a big mountain, next to a wild horses running, and the sun is out, and it really looks good. And then some of the scenes where she's flying over the city in it's in Illinois. I think it's Chicago, and she's flying over the city, and it looks really, really beautiful against the skyline, the buildings, and how she's flying, and the score. It really does look good. And the fortress at the end of the movie is interesting. Faye Dunaway's fortress. She plays an evil witch in here, practicing black magic, and has special powers to summon evil to fight. And they have the Phantom Zone in here too. And Peter O'Toole was sent there because at the beginning of the movie, his mistake caused Argo City to go through an incident that got the Omega Hedron out of the city, punched a hole in the wall or in the protective shielding. So he sent himself kind of to the Phantom Zone because he was felt bad about what he did. They might have sent him there anyway. And the Phantom Zone is interesting in here, and the interaction between Helen Slater's character Supergirl and Peter O'Toole's character, and I think it's really, really it's all around. It's a fun movie. I like it. I like the characters in here, the music, the art design of the. I like Argo City, the art design of even the Phantom Zone and how it looks. I do like this movie a lot. It's got a special place in my heart. You may or may not agree with me. If you like superhero movies, it's at least worth checking out. You might not like it as much as me. If you're into more the modern type superhero movies, it might even be a disappointment, but to me it's a charming movie. Makes me feel good, and it's kind of inspiration. It's a feel good type movie. It's one of my favorites, so it's worth checking out. This has been the Late Night Review, and please like and subscribe and share this video, and good night, everybody.